But it didn't work out quite that way. Open seat. Al Gore went to the office of the vice president, and I got to thinking about some of these things, about my country and about conversations we'd had around the kitchen table at home, and how I felt when I first read Barry Goldwater's Conscience of a Conservative when I was in Memphis State, and whether or not I ought to step up. The same feeling I have today. But back in those days, we were kind of down as a party. Bill Clinton was in the White House. He kicked us pretty good, carried my home state. He carried Tennessee twice. I carried it twice, about 20 points. But we're kind of down as a nation in some respects. But we hit the trail, hit the road. And as I found out later, a lot of other candidates around the country, talking about some basic things, talking about the principles that this country was founded on, including what I call the first principles of the United States, conservative first principles that founded this country, based upon the notion that in a changing world even, there's some things that don't change. But certain thing is the wisdom and the lessons of the ages that we need to learn from. There are certain things such as human nature that we often tend to do the wrong things, but we can be inspired to do wonderful things as a country. They gave us the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. The most important thing the Declaration said was, remember folks, our fundamental liberties and rights come from God and not from any government. The Constitution pointed out to us that with all its provisions that are in there, the most important part is that you separate power out and you don't put too much in any one hand, not only at the federal level, but the federal and the state level. It's called a system of federalism, which things should be judged by. You know, I always thought when I was in Washington, the first thing a politician ought to ask himself is, should government be doing this? And the second question is, okay, if so, at what level? And I cast a little bit of a maverick sometimes, 99-to-1 vote on a couple of occasions. I was the one, because it's federalism issue. The government doesn't have any business doing this, or that the state's been doing something for 200 years. Give me a very good reason why we ought to federalize it at a time when the federal government can't get his act together in so many different respects anyway. The principle by which you judge many, many issues that come before you. We took those on the road. We tried them out. I did, with the people of Tennessee. And we talked about the importance of the rule of law. We talked about the importance of a market economy. We talked about the respect for the sanctity of life that's so fundamental to all of us. We talked about economic choice. We talked about the benefits of free competition by free people. We talked about trade and how, on balance, nations that have engaged in it demanded the other guys be fair and open too. But nations that have engaged in it and applied these other principles, applied these other components, have always been prosperous. We set the example for that. When we got started over here, there weren't any other democracies. And now about over half the countries, depending on how you define them, in the nation, are considered to be democracies. And we set the pattern for all of that. And that's the reason that we have the prosperity that we have, and the reason that we're the most powerful country in the world. We don't say that from a standpoint of meanness or anything like that. It's just a fact. And we need to think about why that came about. Because when it did come about, it served as an example for everybody else in the world that would follow that same pattern of freedom, basically. And we saw the prosperity that came of it. So the American people embraced us. We went to Washington in short order. We were able to balance the budget. We were able to cut taxes. We were able to reform welfare, something that had been kicking around for 30 years and nobody's been able to get done. We were able to get the military headed back in the right direction. After the Cold War, you know, folks in Washington thought apparently we weren't going to need our military the way we needed it in time. But we want our peace dividend, you know, so we cut the military by about a third. And procurement, and research and development, things like that, cut that even more. Our intelligence capabilities with it. We're paying a price for that even today. And we see how important that is to the security of this nation. We did that by adhering to principles and doing things that we felt were right. Sometimes you feel like you're taking a chance on it because you're not sure that anybody else feels the way you do about certain things. It's so interesting how often when you do the right thing, it turns out to be good politics too. I found that to be the case. But every few years, you're presented with another set of issues and additional challenges to the country. We live in a totally different world in many respects. We have things that are comprised of some traditional old things, some new things, traditional things that we need to keep in mind. Mary mentioned the Chief Justice, John Roberts, and I'm so proud to have helped. He shows that quality wins out. I thought at the time, if I'm ever the President of the United States and I put up a guy like this, and they reject him, I'm going to put up another one right behind him. And then another one like him, just like him. And another one just like him right behind that one. And see if they want to have this national debate with me about quality and conservative principles and so forth. I don't think they do. I think it is so important, probably the second most important thing the President can do, is to do everything he can to have a justice on the Supreme Court who will apply the laws of the Constitution and not make it up as they go along. And that's what we got in Roberts, and that's what we got to have more of in this court. We're concerned about illegal immigration. We all know the wonderful contributions that we have received as a result of us being an open society to other people. We are other people. I never went back too far in my own family history. I didn't know what I'd come up with. So in fact, Larry mentioned prosecuting these bank robbers and moonshiners. I had to explain that moonshiner part to my granddaddy as to why that was a good idea. I'm still not sure he's forgiven me for he forgave me for that before he passed on. But we see that all around us every day. We have about 1 million green cards issued in this country every year. As late as early 90s, it was more like 500,000. So from the legal standpoint, we're still an open and generous nation. Some say we're not assimilating, what we're bringing in legally. The people I feel most sorry for in this immigration debate are the ones who stood in line, played by the rules, and got here and become such productive citizens, to see other people get at the head of the line who didn't play by the rules and who came illegally. It's not right from a moral standpoint, I don't think. And it's not right from a national security standpoint. We live in a world now of a suitcase bomb where a person can get his hands or be sent here from a terrorist nation. A lot of it being caught over the last few years, in the thousands. Sponsors of state terrorism. Get his hands on a little material, come here and do some devastation. With the right kind of technical capabilities to go along with it. It's not right. And we need to come to terms with the fact that we're not a mean nation. That we're all citizens now together, regardless where we came from. But the legal citizens together get to decide who comes into our country and at what rate they come in. And that a nation that cannot or will not secure its borders will not forever remain a sovereign nation. As I drive around this beautiful landscape, I think about the inheritance tax and what's happened to so many small businessmen and farmers and so forth in this country, working hard all their lives, paying taxes all their lives, and then what's done to them at the end of the day with these inheritance tax. And to just give you an example of how ridiculous our tax code has become, if you died on New Year's Eve of 2010, your estate tax on the scale they got it set now, it would be